It's not really been stated on this channel how on and off I am about math rock, let alone math in general, at the risk of turning hatred of math into a personality trait like everybody else, as if simultaneous equations aren't the algebraic equivalent of an orgasm. Swirly time signatures that dodge convention like a stampede of drunk scooterers gives me the impression that these bands wish to find joy or catharsis by playing with our perception of rhythm and pattern. This is really cool, but then it seems like that rhythmic pasta spill never hits me the same way that it hits the rest of the drum kit with a 13-8 time signature before transitioning to a 14-7. Feels like I'm reading out the lotto numbers now. Like, I get it. Some bands take the approach of having the drums play the melody while the guitar is doing the patterned rhythmic support. A creative switcheroo. It's often difficult to tell whether they've even planned it out because their songwriting approach is so unconventional, which gives the music a great sense of unpredictability. You can employ it with several different sound palettes leading to the emotive and sincere TTNG sounding very different from the jutting and jagged Don Caballero. I think for me, math rock bands can have a neat sound palette, and yet their songwriting is more accustomed to showing off how much they can pull off that dizzying riff instead of letting the song have any formidable impact. That's not to say that there's one correct way to do it, just that most ways I feel a bit empty. But that's not new. Anyways, NYOS are great. To get this out of the way, I know which crowd this might appeal to. I know a fair few if you love battles. I took a bite out of Gloss Drop once and it wasn't really my bucket of candy floss, but the crunchy, creative, uplifting and candy-coated sound palette was very cool, and the album had this dual-eyed optimism that I think I can draw parallels to this NYOS album with, titled Now with a full stop, as if to be reaffirming of where you are in the world right now. The Finnish band takes to inspiring heights, like a second-wave post-rock album, and even shares its stompy aggression with sludge metal at times. Really rumbly bass lines ground the music, while blaring riffs hang overhead like the shadow of a towering, tower. NYOS can write motifs so well, polyphonic ones especially. Not that they'll deviate over the course of a track, but they chug so hard as tracks build up and they hypnotize you and they keep your attention locked in as more instrumental layers that play oblique harmonies stack on top, giving you this sense of scale and ascension, like building a massive fort made of bricks or staring up at a really tall building similar to the cover. Each track is so distinct, it's foreboding and blares like a vuvuzela, or like the setting of a colossal force that is edging closer. Edging. Meanwhile, Mutante begins as skippity fun with a bright, shining guitar tone that you might hear on something by, I don't know, Terra Melos. Less low-end, more high spirits. Of course I prefer the more alarming tracks with weightier composition, but who am I to knock this album for having a moment more fluorescent sounding than the others? Even then, when the drums and bass snap in on that track, it really starts to bump. It'll still be an intense album regardless. It could sound urgent or playful, and sometimes even fuses the two, and those moments are when NYOS shine the most. Because while this is definitely an uplifting, fun album, it's not one that is devoid of depth. The final moment on this album, Eviero, feels like a rightfully serene conclusion, almost as if you've been scaling a ladder to the skies, and finally made it to the clouds by the end of it all. This payoff is satisfying, and even for the least aggressive track, it maintains that sense of giganticness that I already get from playing Giant Jenga. You reckon this could be a strong 7 out of 10? Cause I do.